Hey guys, Sean here. Today, to get this stool out of our way, we're going to be doing a little video on how to secure a piston rack, specifically on full metal tooth pistons. A little warning ahead of time, just got over a really crappy cold, so you might hear me sniffle a bit, take frequent drinks of my drink right there, etc., whatever. Anyway, still got to do a video. Securing the piston rack. That means basically gluing it in. I mean, for people always talk about doing it with SHS full metal tooth pistons, but realistically, you should do it with any and every full metal tooth piston. Doesn't matter what brand. I don't care if it's your retro arms, because if you don't, I mean, this isn't a guarantee, but a lot of times the rack will just shoot straight out the back of the piston. You can see the rack support completely blew out, and the tooth rack obviously is not really as usable anymore. Or here's a something SHS pistons are a little bit known for, is the stupid seam line that they have right in the back, right on the rear support where they split, and that's not cool either. Here's a Terminus X piston, back from a little bit old school. They're not even around anymore, but yeah, crap polycarbonate flew right out the back. This one was a deep fire. Oh yeah, retro arms. Happens to all full metal rack pistons. It'll happen. And this rear support coming out ended up making this bend and causing it to be totally useless. So, you obviously now see the need for gluing your rack in. For basically every build that I do, I don't use a full metal rack piston unless it's a DSG, because that's for the most part needed. I've seen like Lonex Reds and Prometheus hards used in DSGs, and they do last decently, but obviously as far as wear resistance on the teeth, metal is going to be better. It's just the rear support of a full metal tooth piston that lets it down. So in most builds, I prefer a only partial metal tooth piston, like Lonex Reds, the Lonex Reds kind of crappier little brother, the Lonex Blue, which I'm quite impressed with this piston. It's been running at 35 rounds per second and about 370 FPS for a couple of years now. And I Swiss cheesed the hell out of it, so actually kind of impressed with the blue. And the red is even better, but obviously my favorite of all, which is the System Super Core. And basically the reason why these nearly never fail, as far as the initial pickup tooth rack support goes, is because the pickup tooth plastic has all this area just to grab onto. You know, it's all one solid mold, whereas with a full metal tooth piston, that's the only rack support you're getting. That's why you glue these in. So my suggestion for most builds is use a partial metal tooth piston, like the Super Core, or Lonex Red, or Lonex Blue, or whatever, and just use a high quality partial metal tooth piston. You're fine. For DSGs or certain high stress builds where the wear resistance on the teeth is needed, full metal tooth. So, like I said, you want to secure the rack in place. That's suggested for all full metal tooth pistons. What you're going to need is obviously your full metal tooth piston, some super glue. My favorite brand has been the Loctite. Professional liquid. I don't know if that really makes a difference, because I know they do have a few different kinds of super glue. And a file. Last thing you're going to need is, it's not right in front of me yet, but some Q-tips, cotton swabs, whatever you want to call them, and the highest percentage of rubbing alcohol that you can get your hands on. And here we go, Q-tips. Picked up some 91% isopropyl alcohol from Meyer, obviously. And that'll do just fine. First, what you might want to do is just set your cap down. Actually, I'll pour some into the cap. You're not going to need a whole lot more than just a tiny bit. Set this aside, don't bump into it, don't spill it, probably smell real bad. I mean, it evaporates rather quickly, but it smells. Excuse me. And so you're gonna remove your tooth rack. Get a little bit of alcohol on a cotton swab, and just get it in that groove real good. Because I did notice from the factory they have some grease in there, and whatever, it actually appears wet from the factory, so that's kind of tells me they probably put some silicone grease or something in these just to slide the tooth rack in easier, make the manufacturing process a little quicker, I guess. Whatever. But you're going to clean that up, let it dry, set it aside. Next, you are going to take your tooth rack. This black coating that SHS puts on their tooth racks is a really nice, really good wear-resistant coating, but it's smooth as fuck. So, excuse my language, but this is going to have a really hard time grabbing, or the super glue is going to have a hard time sticking to this, just like how if you are painting something and you're not using primer, you have to roughen the surface if it's too smooth so the paint will stick. Same basic thing with super glue. So what I'm going to do is just roughen it up. So, and obviously don't cut your teeth or anything, just you're roughening just the edge where it goes into the little grooves in the piston. And you can also roughen the inside front where it goes in right there, and then you can roughen under the pickup tooth where it touches right there. Just make sure you don't actually take away a lot of material, because you're weakening the pickup area if you take away material, so don't do that. Just roughen the coating. And this is obviously quite necessary for a higher stress DSG, which is what I'm building right now. I'm actually quite excited. Got the Gen 3 Siege Tech dual sector. I've had plenty of Siege Tech gear sets, Gen 1, Gen 2, but they've always been black, except for the Gen 1 bevels. And those were PIM, I believe. So I'm actually interested in seeing how this new coating, this grayish colored coating, holds up. Because I never really even had much of a problem with the black coating of the old Siege Tech gears, so let's see how much better it'll be, I suppose. And not everyone roughens the coating on these, however, I think it's a great idea to do. Seems to make the super glue stick a hell of a lot better. And sorry if you can't hear me over this for some reason. But yeah, and after that you're gonna have a bunch of metal shaving dust on this and probably grease or sweat from your hands, so you want to just wipe that off real well. Use a clean rag. Wipe it off. Maybe even get your alcohol swab and swab it clean. let that dry as well. And you can sort of speed up the drying process by using a clean rag, but whatever. Next, you're going to start super gluing. This should be dry by now. That alcohol seems to dry pretty quickly. This is a dry cotton swab right now that I'm just making sure it's all dry, getting any little extra grease out. Alright then, I might have to do this off camera, because I have my camera positioned weirdly again, but basically you're just going to put it back here, along inside the grooves, and right up here. So I'll do that. Let's see if I can do it on camera maybe. And this Loctite liquid stuff is definitely a little harder to work with because it's so liquidy that it tends to really like to run everywhere. So if you do get a little bit of excess, it's not that big of a deal. You can just wipe it off before it dries, or basically break it off after it does dry. But there we go. Put that in place, make sure it's pressed tightly in there where it should be, and well, looks pretty decent. A little bit extra in there. Kind of wipe it out. Make sure you don't take too long to wipe it out, or else you'll get cotton up in your piston, and you don't want that. There. Now your tooth rack is, well, once this dries, your tooth rack will be totally in there. You're never going to get that thing out. I mean, unless you really try, but then you might end up breaking the piston body or breaking the metal rack or bending it. But there we go. Now it is solid in there. Just gotta wait for it to dry. So, suppose I could install my piston head. Another thing, I mean, I've talked to guys that run Zorbethane on the back of their cylinder head in DSGs, and it turns out completely fine for them. The Zorbethane doesn't get torn up. However, in my experience, Zorbethane is very weak in most setups over an M140. And over like 30 rounds per second tends to be pretty weak. So, yeah, I prefer the piston head spacer method that just spaces the piston back a little to give you the proper angle of engagement. If you don't know what that is, I'll probably end up making a video on it too, or you could literally just type in airsoft angle of engagement on YouTube or Google or any of the airsoft teching forums, etc. And if you don't know what angle of engagement is already, you probably shouldn't be building guns yet, no offense, but I feel like angle of engagement correction should come before piston tooth gluing. But yeah, that's how you do that. Yeah. Next video, I know I said last video, my next video would be about, at the end of my last video I said, hey, my next video will be about radiusing a gearbox shell with a hand file. Well, I decided to do this one first, and that'll be next. Or whatever, however that goes. So, hope you guys enjoyed this, as always. Hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, keep teching, guys, and stay tuned for more videos. Hopefully I'll be making more stuff more frequently. I've been pretty busy, but yeah, I'll keep y'all updated on the DSG. Make sure you check out my Instagram at Airsoft and Milsim, all one word. No underscores or anything like that. And yeah, so I'll keep you updated on there and on here. Alright guys, have a nice day.